All right. So, in my slideshow, I will be discussing about air pollution. And the things we'll talk about is what is air, what are air pollution, and what are the types of air pollution, along with the common types of pollutants, and what are the causes and effects of air pollution, along with the impacts, and why we should worry about our air in general. So, what is air? Air is is part of the Earth's atmosphere. It is a clear gas in which living things needed to breathe and survive. It has an undefined shape and volume, along with having no color, but it has mass. It has matter, and air is part of the atmospheric pressure. So, when air is part of our Earth's atmosphere, it basically means air is, well, it means it equals to gases into the air, which one can be oxygen, one can be CO2, carbon dioxide, um, along with other different types of gases that I won't go on forever. And we cannot measure it and we cannot give it a shape or volume because it is basically all around us worldwide. So it cannot be measured whatsoever. And it is true that air has no color because we cannot see it in order to give it a color, but it has mass. And when it has mass, it basically means it can pushes back like the wind. And wind is one example, which it pushes you back when it's strong wind currents occurring in your environment or habitat, along with producing all kinds of weather patterns that give it a climate to every environment. So that is part of the atmospheric pressure. The atmospheric pressure controls when it's going to rain, when it's going to snow, and how the weather is going to move on from there. And so, what are air pollutants? So, air pollutants in general are substances that can be projected into the air that affect both humans and living things as well. So, in this picture here, we look at it as like an air pollutant when we see a bunch of like smoke going up to the sky. And that is basically building up gas after gas after gas, and then it will form into different other gases that can be very deadly to us if we breathe into it. And and these types of air pollutants can be in many different forms. But the three forms we'll discuss can be in a solid form, along with liquid, and a gas form. And in this picture here, it is basically in a gas form, which goes up to the atmosphere. And a gas form is basically the most common form that most air pollution is made of, and how it is polluting our air is because many types of gases are generated by us when we use them as energy resources to use them for moving a car or building up electricity or using it to get heat in the house and everything else. And most of these pollutants are basically man-made, and some of the man-made things can be like methane. And methane, it can be a natural thing, but it occurs in the wetlands. But we can make it into our own product, which can be used for abundance of things. But that is another story. Uh, well, that can be discussed later on. And these are the common types of pollutants that go into our atmosphere. So the first one is carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless, and tasteless gas. So it can come from many varieties, including houses, vehicles, and generators. And houses use gas heaters and electricity, for example, and vehicles, well, cars and trucks altogether use gas. But if you have an electric car or something like that, then you're basically don't have to worry about that. And generators produce electricity, but they require a fuel source, which is like gas. And when gas is being used as a fuel source, it exhausts all the gas that is being used up to the air and creates an abundance of pollutants. So nitrogen dioxide. This is another type of gas that can be formed with many other pollutants that come from road traffic and fossil fuels themselves. Another one will be particulate matter. So this one is the less likely common, but it can occur uh, rapidly if not careful with it. And this one can be either a solid or a liquid matter that is suspended in animation. And if it's released to the air, it can be very hazardous. For example, let's look at ice being melted off from the sun. And when ice is being melted off, it traps air, gases, and all that stuff from our atmosphere into isolized crystallizations that can be melted off very easily from the sun if uh, and sometimes if those things are released, it releases a bunch of CO2 gases along with other types of gases, and sometimes they can be trapped from a different timeline that can be very poisonous to us if not careful. And that's basically what global warming does, is basically it melts off all the ice and makes a bunch of pollutants go up to our atmosphere. And sulfur dioxide, this one in particular is another type of gas, but is also very toxic. And this can be formed from fossil fuel combustion along with industrial activity. And lead is a solid metal, which is a solid matter that can be found in gasolines, solder, and other consumer products. So by this, lead can be very deadly to humans. For example, Flint, Michigan had a problem, or maybe still currently has a problem today of their water supply being tainted with lead metal, the metal, the lead. And lead can be very dangerous to humans, along with um, having difficulty with blood pressure measurements, along with the blood flow into our bloodstream, and many other things. And it can also be very deadly to children because it can give them many cognitive disorders that may not give many children the option to get the care they need if not careful. And the final type is ground level ozone. So this one is created by a bunch of actually two chemical reactions that are formed from nitrogen oxides along with volatile or organic compounds. And these ones can be basically a gas meets organic chemical. In this combined along with the presence of sunlight can make it into a very deadly form of chemical reactions that can be deadly if inhaled and cause health problems. And some of these sources come from electric utility usage, along with vehicle exhaustion and gasoline vapors. So, the types of air pollution. So, the first type we'll discuss is outdoor air pollution. And by this moment, we already know the common types of pollutants that go up into our atmosphere and the sources of them. But create what what happens if they're combined and they create into something new? So, smog. This is the first one for outdoor air pollution. It is a fog type substance that is mixed with other air pollutants, sorry. And the second type, particulates, is, well, as we discussed before, is a matter that can be either a solid or a liquid that is suspended into the air and which can be deadly from man-made substances. And the third type, acid rain. So when it comes down to it, it creates acidic rainfall that can be deadly to all life itself, including humans, forests, and lakes. And this can be very uh, deadly to habitats along with living beings in general, because of a bunch of things that go up to the air and create a chemical reaction that creates rainfall that is poison to us, then it ruins the whole environment and makes it difficult to live there. And another one, which is the most common thing that we all know, is greenhouse gases. And this type of gas is that it contributes to the greenhouse effect by absorbing infrared radiation. Now, the second type, the indoor air pollution. So, in indoor, we already know that heaters are pretty much use uh, gases to build up heat and to keep us warm and manageable into our houses during winter. And oil is another one, which is used for cars and other things in general. And fireplaces is when we don't have heaters, we use fireplaces to keep us warm as well during the winters. And it uses up like wood and fire. So when you have fire burning wood, you're releasing a bunch of CO2 up into the atmosphere. And with a lot of CO2 going up into the atmosphere, it causes all kinds of abnormal weather patterns along with abnormal air quality to our atmosphere. And furnaces and propane and related gases from other homes. So these all occur uh, in our houses, into our homes by using a bunch of gases, and those can get released up into the atmosphere, which can cause very deadly consequences if not treated or kept right or carefully. So, and the causes of air pollution is basically one can be from natural sources. Uh, s- Say, for example, wildfires. And wildfires generally happen during the summertime in National Yellowstone Park, and it generally happens when it burns the forest down, but it also releases CO2, and that can be released up into the atmosphere, which can create different weather patterns, and that can may cause rain or other patterns as well. And another one is volcanoes erupting, and that can release all types of different gases up to the air, to CO2, to methane, to all kinds uh, to sulfur dioxide and nitrogen. All those types of gases can be released up into the air. And methane can be found in wetlands or in the ocean, and those are basically gases that are from that can be created from the ocean. Like for example, there is like volcanic uh, underwater volcanic grounds, and this creates methane when combined with oxygen and other gases into the water. And dust is another cause that gets uplifted into our atmosphere. So dust in general can like capture small particles of solid materials, like for example, skin cells, dead skin cells, and along with uh, mineralized rocks diminished, and let's see, wood, small wood particles, and other things. So, say for example, the wind carries all that, by shoveling it and then pushing it into somewhere else, like sweeping it out and cleaning it for us. When the wind kicks in, it pushes that all out and moves it into another direction. But it also goes into our atmosphere, which can be sometimes natural, but if collecting too much, it can cause effect to our air quality. And this right here in this picture is the air pollution mechanism. So the first one, you'll see nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, mercury, organic compound, ammonia going up into our atmosphere, uh, and then it will be transported into our ozone along with transforming it to into the clouds, and then creating all kinds of things, and it affects our natural resources and the wildlife, our environment, and to our human health. So it collects all these things, and then it gets deposited back to our environment where it came from, and then it affects the wildlife and mostly anywhere nearby its environment. And the effects, what are the effects of air pollution? So the effects of air pollution can cause potentially all kinds of problems, including having major health problems for humans, uh, diseases, and extending current diseases that were already given. So this can cause lung cancer uh, along with extending current diseases that you already have. Because if you're living in a polluted environment that has a bunch of gases that are created, it is basically killing you slowly, bit by bit, if not taken into proper care or moved into a different hospital or environment altogether. And this can also cause environmental problems as well. And this can affect wildlife and crop crops along with climate and creating acid rain. So these types of things can affect our environment as well. It doesn't affect living things and humans as uh, only. It affects all around us on Earth because air is so important to us that it makes our life on Earth possible, and that is what helps us survive. Is because we need air to breathe in order to function the way we need to function, along with other properties like food and water are the other two things that we need in order to survive. And when it comes down to air pollution, it can deplete our ozone layer because our ozone layer is basically protecting us from the sun's ultraviolet rays, and if and air pollution can cause depletion of the ozone layer. That when a bunch of gas and chemical reactions go up into the atmosphere, it basically dissolves the layer and it creates a hole into our ozone layer that can penetrate our skin and eventually give us skin cancer, and that can cause a lot of problems for human health as well, along with a lot of other problems if not taken accountable. And then the impacts from the air pollution that is embedded to our atmosphere can change our climate at an abnormal rate, along with affecting human health at a global scale and causing economic issues that involve the usage of fossil fuels and other natural resources, and also have to like basically pay for the damages that are caused from these fossil fuels. Because from damages wise, you basically have to like take care of the damages that cause human health problems, along with finding another different resource altogether that isn't too damaging to our planet and our atmosphere in general. And this can cause a lot of economic problems when trying to find a different resource altogether. And this can also cause destruction to our habitats, ecosystems, environments, and life itself. And this can make agriculture impossible to exist without having animals or plants to harvest from. So agriculture itself needs like plants and animals. So we have to like make so in agriculture in general, it's basically using like resources collected from uh, animals and plants itself in order to make medicine, to make uh, food and crops and all those things. And without air and proper like atmosphere balance to create plants to grow more and animals to survive, it basically lowers those it lowers their chances to like survive indefinitely if not taken accountable for air pollution. So why should we worry about our air? Well, our air is what makes us alive, and this is what helps us survive, and this is what makes life possible on Earth. And air is the abundance of life itself, and it keeps our climate in check. So in air in general, we need to like one of these days we need to figure out how to lower the amount of air of pollutants going up into our atmosphere in order to make sure our life on Earth isn't impacted and it is not destroyed before we can make that happen. And in order to do that, we either need to find a natural resource that is not damaging or can can be used for the betterment of everyone, along with not causing so much damage to our environments as well. And that is my slideshow, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you.